All right, we're back with the great Scott Burnstein OG podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, also on the YouTubes. We got to talk some sports. We solved JFK. We found where Hoffel was in the first part on the podcast, but here on YouTube, on the Pulse Sports Network, in the second half of this podcast, we got to talk some sports. Let's talk about your maybe your favorite team, second favorite team.
I mean, it's the Lions and the Hoosiers. Those are the teams that really have always had my heart,
God
or at
bless
least the
you.
Hoosiers got my heart when I was 18 and I decided to go to college there. I grew up a huge Michigan basketball fan, and Indiana would always beat them, and Indiana would always go to the Final Four, and Indiana would always win national championships. So when I became an Indiana fan, I thought that's what I was signing up for. And it's been almost 30 years. It's been almost 30 years of limited tournament success. One Final Four, which was glorious. 2002. Shout out to Dane Fife, the captain, my boy, and Tommy Coverdale, my all-time favorite point guard, not named Isaiah Thomas.
Such a shooter. Coverdale was such a killer.
So he was so good. He was so gritty, man. He was so gritty.
Yes.
But outside of that, I think we've had maybe 3 Sweet 16s, maybe 4, but I only think 3 in 30 years. I mean, it's depressing, man. That's really depressing for a team that would always go to the Final Four.
Don't look for sympathy on this show. I'm a Rutgers fan, so I don't want to. I'm not giving you.
But Rutgers didn't have any history.
Oh, how dare you!
A Final Four in 1976.
76. So it's just there have been obviously some times over the in the 2000s that have looked bright and promising in the post Bobby Knight era, but none of it has come to really fruition. It's so few, the good times are so few and far between. You know this, Stu. I have never, ever endorsed this Mike Woodson regime.
Yeah, I will say, not a fan.
I hated the hire. Mike Woodson is who he is. He was a average NBA player who was a average NBA coach who was a average college coach. And I cannot fathom how it's taken so many people to try to crack this code and get this state. Forget about the country. We need the state back. We need a point where the best players in the state aren't even thinking about Purdue or Notre Dame or Butler. And
Indiana State, you need them to get away from the Sycamores at this point.
What was the thing of hiring Woodson? What was the
they couldn't get anybody they wanted, and they needed to hire somebody. They put all their eggs in the Brad Stevens, Chris Holtzman basket, and when both of them told them to go fly a kite, they felt pressed. And the plan, I believe at the time, was that Mike Woodson was going to be a bridge hire to Dane Fife, and then Fife would take the program. That fell apart like immediately. And Dane has been, and I admit I'm biased because I'm buddies with him, and I've been buddies with his family, and I've known his dad since I was a kid. So I get it. I'm biased, but Dane's been pretty much blackballed from college basketball. With him being the head coach at IU is that might as well have been 1,000 years ago. Those thoughts, because right now he can't even get an assistant job at a mid-major, because of what, in my opinion, what the current IU basketball regime has put out into the ether related to Dane. And
is it just a waiting game for him, for Dane? Like we saw Patino. I mean,
no, I don't. No. But dude, we're talking. You think about what our political climate is right now. Rick Pitino got caught with mistresses and giving his kids prostitutes. Rick Pitino has never been accused of being a racist. Has never been accused of. So there's a lot of things at play that, and I'm not saying that Dane might have not had some role in antagonizing Woodson and some of Woodson's loyalists, and probably said some maybe tone deaf things. I know that Dane is not a racist. It's the furthest thing from a racist. His family are the furthest things from racists. They're salt of the earth people. Dane is just, he's a little goofy. And but I laugh at the notion that this guy who had so much success, both as a player and as a coach, with black people his entire life, somehow at 43 years old, he's deemed a racist by certain people, and it's really, it's hurt his career severely. I don't know if he'll make it back. I don't know. I know
it really is amazing when you get labeled as something, especially in sports, especially on that kind of level. Like you were saying, Patino, when they win and they win all the time, they'll excuse anything. They'll look the other way on anything, and it's like, if you don't have the greatest track record, or like you said, they label you something, you're done. You're not, there's no way you're coming back in today's day and age.
No, I'll say also with Dane, and I would say this to his face, I don't think it's the best look of him doing appearances on Dan Docker's show.
Yeah.
With Outkick. That doesn't do anything to erase the belief that he has, far right agenda or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dan Dockich personally, I think he's a horrible human being. I know he's an IU legend. He was an assistant coach when I was there. Some of the stuff that he's done at a personal level, I take a lot of issues with. On the radio in Indianapolis, some real slimy personal vendetta shit. All due respect.
He was having an all-out Twitter war last year with Ron Harper Jr., the kid that played for Rutgers, and then about like Ron Harper's father. It was like, this guy's out of control.
So Dane butting up with him, I understand that they have that IU tie and they work together, but I don't think it's a great look for Dane to be doing appearances on his show on a network. Again, I consume Outkick, but I think I know, I can discern what part of it is just radical right-wing propaganda and what part of it is something to pay attention to. But I also, if I was Dane, I wouldn't go anywhere close to anything related to Outkick or Dan Dockich. And, he just made an appearance like yesterday.
Well, Outkick is the same way as Fox News or CNN or any of these other ones. They're going to play to their audience. Even Clay Travis. There's no way Clay Travis was that extreme right wing, but he plays to his audience. He knows what everybody wants, in my opinion.
I work for Fox, so I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't acknowledge that. Like Fox Nation, like Fox News Channel in New York, the Sean Hannity Fox. They pay me money. They employ me for part of the year. So
there you go.
Nothing to begrudge him with.
But specifically Mike Woodson, I know this is a long preamble.
It's got to be his last year.
My biggest issue, and this echoes with my biggest issue with my pro sports team, the Detroit Pistons. I don't know how in 2024, with the way basketball is, you can be rolling out rosters with no great three-point shooters. It drives me insane. I do not understand how you think you can win in this day and age.
Or let's go with an all-big starting five. Let's see how that works out.
At any level, and not have not just one good shooter, like 5 of them. And it seems like
Mike Woodson. Stu, what is that Twitter account, the Pistons fan? The guy who stops the games?
Oh, have you seen that, Scott, where there's that guy, he just goes ballistic talking about Monty Williams' defense and just, I mean, it's phenomenal.
It's nobody's fault in the Pistons. There's two people whose fault it is. One is our general manager, Mr. Troy Weaver, and one is the owner, Mr. Tom Gores. Nobody on this roster or on this coaching staff, in my opinion, takes any responsibility for this. In my opinion.
It is wretched.
Anybody that's looking at Monty Williams and saying that the problem with the Pistons is Monty Williams needs to have their head re-examined.
No, but it looks like Monty died inside. Monty died inside a month and a half ago. He didn't want to come here in the first place. They overpaid for him. By the way, his kid's a great college basketball prospect. A sophomore, Elijah Williams, 6'6". Can we get him visit the East Lansing?
Yeah. Well, I know the Michigan State's recruiting him.
Beautiful.
Michigan just offered him. I'm sure Michigan State will offer him soon.
Oh, well, maybe the exciting prospect playing for Phil Martelli.
Yeah. I mean, so I hope Woodson is out of there next year, and I don't know what
it has to be this year. Scott, I mean, you watched the Penn State game Saturday. That was horrific.
It's embarrassing.
I don't even know.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I love the idea of Brad Stevens, but he ain't coming. Why would you come back to college if you're running the Celtics and the Celtics do what they do? And part of
maybe you go down the road to Indiana State.
I've always looked at, and
they built up a nice program there.
Yeah. I don't think it necessarily needs to be an IU guy. You know, that's always been a thing. Mm-hmm. They went away from it with Kelvin Sampson, and they got bit. They went away from it with Crean, and mixed results.
And look what Calvin's done to Houston, though.
Yeah, no, I know. No, we can segue into Michigan from this. Kelvin Sampson, there's no question that he knows what he's doing when it comes to coaching basketball. He's a great coach. He's just shady as all hell.
Wow, that I see how you led into it. And now this war criminal has finally left that school.
The Powder Blues have taken over. He hired Greg Roman today. He's getting the band back together. Thank God we got Fangio, because he would have had Fangio back in San Diego too with him, like he did in San Francisco. Scott, what are your thoughts on Jim Harbaugh going back to the NFL? And, he left Michigan in a phenomenal spot. He finally won. But with these sanctions that might come down, I don't know. It almost feels like he left town before the fire.
I think, and too, Scott, I think he might honestly skate. Like, Michigan might actually skate on these sanctions based on what's going on with Tennessee and this SEC Big Ten. Once again, the Big Ten coming to the SEC's, safety. Big brother looking out for little sister. But your thoughts?
I think that this entire 9 years could be one of the most compelling, unique, like straight out of a Hollywood screenwriter room story and saga. There's been so many twists and turns, and so much fodder and fire and vitriol, and at the end of the day, championships. It's you could have never predicted this. But I will say this: him leaving was inevitable. If he could have, he would have left before any of this new golden era of Michigan football even happened. He wanted to leave during the pandemic. The university wanted him to leave, basically. They cut his salary in half. So it's just strange that he went for 6 years, pretty underwhelming top to bottom, although there were some good moments in that top six, but no real signature moments or championships. And any other coach at any other school would have been gone. I mean, he's flatlining at 2-5 in the pandemic. He's afraid to play Ohio State. He anoints Joe Milton as the next great Michigan quarterback. That was a disaster. And then from the ashes rises this phoenix that takes Michigan to heights it had never achieved in modern day times. In my lifetime, I had never seen it before, where they were definitive top 1, 2, 3 team in the country, 3 straight years, cap it with a national title in dominating fashion. I mean, again, it's just, yeah, who could have predicted any of this? I guess my biggest, I would say, like, what irritates me is, and this is just part and parcel with Michigan fans, and my family are Michigan fans. They went to Michigan. I've been around it my whole life. I just wish there was some self-awareness and ownership. To me, it's like, for someone who roots for Michigan, I don't necessarily consider myself a Michigan fan, but I root for Michigan. Hey, just embrace it. The last 3 years, you became the U. You became a lawless gangster program. But guess what? Just like the U, you came away with the ring.
Hey, listen, you need some dogs. You need
leaders
some
in the
dogs.
best.
It doesn't
though.
matter.
So
leaders
you know what?
Just
embrace it and be like, yeah, we sold our soul to the devil, and it got us where we wanted to go and needed to be. Yeah. And if I felt like that was the overarching aura or ethos, but it's like this, how dare you question us, and we're so beyond reproach, and we do it the right way, when it's so clear as day you don't. You're hypocrites.
So Scott, as a leading field leading crime analyst and investigator, are you saying that the Connor Stallion stuff is...
I like how it slips underneath the maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention, but I saw about a week ago one of the people that Jim Harbaugh's bringing with him to the LA Chargers is Connor Stallion's head of scouting, whatever. I didn't recall a ton of articles kind of pointing that out.
Scott, the blue wall has there was a section taken out, and then radio sound, they built it back. It's built back up.
How do you? I thought he didn't know that. I thought he barely knew. He knew nothing. He knew nothing was going on.
He didn't know Connor.
How does he know the guy's a good scout? How does he know he knows what he's doing?
Hey, he was just financing that on his own. He's just a big college football fan, just going to all these games, buying all these tickets.
On an aside, and you can hit the siren here, I found out that I have like a fucking shit ton of inner, like, mutual acquaintances with Connor Stalions, and I didn't realize I knew his brother a little bit, James Stalions, who was the starting quarterback on, I want to say, back-to-back state championship teams at Macomb, Dakota in the 2000s, but he might have been just the quarterback on one of those teams.
I think I may have played against his brother then.
Yeah, and he played he went to Tennessee. He was good enough to get a scholarship to Tennessee.
He'd be a guy to get on your podcast.
Well, I'm actually kind of insulted for Scott that he didn't get offered a trip to go see Penn State, Ohio State, and get those 50-yard tickets. I mean, yeah, that's a little frustrating.
So I mean, yeah, I don't know what's coming down the pike. Who's going to get slammed? Who's not? But whether or not there were sanctions or no sanctions, Harbaugh wanted to go to the NFL. I don't know why it was so difficult for people that cover Michigan to just say that. People like Bob at the Detroit News, like,
oh well, we know.
Just accept. He's telling you every year he wants to leave.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Why are you doubting that?
they say that he really 2 years ago, like the Minnesota job, when
He was
he
gone. He
went
was
there that
gone.
day for the interview, he thought he was gone. I mean, he would have never even won a national championship. It's amazing the way that worked out.
He told the entire Schembechler Hall the day before he left. He brought them all together. He gave the secretaries all going away presents. He was
Wow.
done. He told everybody, go find jobs.
Wow. That's amazing. It's
With
amazing the way that worked out, that whole thing.
with Sharon Moore taking over, and it really seems like they're just, they lose
I feel
their
bad for him.
DC. Well, he's gonna get a free pass. He's gonna get a free pass.
Maybe for a year or two. He'll be out of there in 3 years.
How is there? I mean, for winning the national championship for the time being without an asterisk, they're ranked like 20th in the country right now. I mean, you follow recruiting.
That's my moonlight gig.
Yeah, I mean, what do you see? It seems like they just kind of like the plan.
This year, their recruiting was bad.
Yeah, just
Harbaugh didn't care. It didn't care between. He knew where it was. He knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't actively engaged in recruiting, and his staff wasn't actively engaged in recruiting at a time where you need to be actively engaged in recruiting for your upcoming class.
What's your thoughts on the NIL, Scott? Before we wrap this up, what do you think about? I think it's fair that these kids do get paid, but I think it's gotten out of line where, I thought Chip Kelly made a great point a couple of weeks ago on ESPN where he said it should be a revenue sharing type thing where everybody gets a piece and that's how we do it and work it out. It's getting to be now. It's just totally out of control where it's just whatever you want to get paid and guys are getting left. That's what a lot of people don't realize. How many kids are getting left in these portals? They're getting lied to by these schools. They're getting lied to by agents. It's really incredible, this era of college football. And I can't remember for the longest time, so many outside people are down on college football right now. I think you're seeing coaches leaving, guys retiring. It's just, it's a bad thing.
I hate to again kind of like pat myself on the back, but I remember doing one of our early interviews too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling this just anybody that when the subject came up, when the Supreme Court ruling came down, what was it, 3 years ago or 2 years ago? Mm-hmm. I was like, this is going to crater the entire business structure of college football, that had been in place for time immemorial. Like there had been a certain way that business was done in college sports for 100 years that got all, thrown out the window. And then there had been no due diligence by the NCAA. And this is, to me, just negligence. They should have been preparing for this day, knowing this day was going to come. But instead, you then, like Rob just said, you open up the floodgates, and there's been no due diligence done, and there are no parameters, and it's the Wild West, and everybody's being creative. And in a matter of three years, it's completely insane, out of control, with certain kids collecting millions of dollars before they even get a snap of a football at a college, and then they're gone to another college to collect more NIL money. You have people taking money without really understanding what that money really means, what the booster is really expecting.
I heard some of the allegations coming out, and I think this is part of why Tennessee's in hot waters. They were actually having kids try to sign contracts.
Yeah.
For terms of service. What's the craziest thing you've heard in your circles so far when it comes to NIL?
It's just it's taken everything that was being done under the table and has brought it, on a stage and put a bright light on it. And it's just these bidding wars where it has nothing to do really with the university. It has more to do with what that coach is promising you, or what he can get you, or what he can't get you, or what the schools NIL office can get you or what they can't get you. In terms of crazy stories, I mean, I don't think this is being talked about for the first time. But I mean, to me, what encapsulates the insanity is the Quinn Ewers. He took $4 million or something from Ohio State boosters and was on campus for a year. Took off, came down to Texas, took another 4 or 5 million from boosters down there. And he had pocketed like $9 million before he took his first college starting snap. And he's turned out to be pretty good. But I mean, if I was those Columbus boosters, I'd want my money back.
Oh yeah.
But there's no remedy for that.
No, and now they're getting agents, which is even more
Yeah.
incredible. That you hear the college coaches say, "I can't even go and talk to the family. First, I got to deal with the agent."
Yeah,
And it's like,
right.
well, this isn't even going to get you in the door to talk to the family.
So I have no idea where this is going, or either going to have to rein this thing in and put in some strict guidelines and protocols.
Salary cap.
In terms of Michigan, though, it's even more impressive that they've been able to do what they've done over the last 3 years without any, muscle in their NIL department.
Yeah.
They have basically told kids that you're more than welcome to go get yourself as much NIL revenue as possible, but you're going to get limited help from us. And I know that there was a certain kind of narrative that was being put out by Michigan that people were kind of taking offense with JJ. They would point to JJ and say, well, look what JJ did for his NIL. And JJ's dad is a guy that knows business, is a connected businessman, and went and wheeled and dealed for his son and made his son some really smart business deals. Not every recruit has those kind of resources.
No, not at all.
Or parents that have the wherewithal, the desire, the knowledge to do any of that.
Or the
And when you
ability
get
to set
agents
up
in there, how many of these agents too are swindling these kids out of money and just taking the parents for a ride and forget about it?
Scott, how many of these kids know how to set up a LLC in Wyoming?
Right. No, right.
Without the help of, people on staff.
But I think if you're Michigan, though, on the other, taking the pendulum to the other side, it's something you got to get hip to, or you're going to be left behind. These were aberrations, man. I mean, what's happened the last couple of years at Michigan it's such a unicorn. I mean, even the way they play, their style. I mean, it wasn't a 2020 brand of football, but they were going in and they were imposing their will on teams and being disruptive to modern day football. But I don't know if that could ever be replicated. And as a result, you're going to need down the field threats. Even the backs that they've used. I mean, again, Blake Corum could be the greatest back Michigan ever had. But I don't know as a pro if he's an every down back. I think he's a guy with a pro career, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Not a down guy.
I don't know if he's an every down back. And Donovan Edwards, same thing. Hassan Haskins has been okay in the NFL, but nothing. He's not Saquon Barkley. So you're gonna need, and JJ McCarthy, frankly, I'm not convinced that he's a great NFL prospect.
I don't see it, but then again, it brings up a question I've had.
They hit him.
Is there a reason? And I think it's JJ specifically. Why Dante Moore had a second opportunity? That tattoo on his dad's arm is not. It hasn't been removed yet. But he's out with Dan Lanning in Oregon, knowing he's sitting another year.
Another year, yeah. Well, because he knew Alex Orji's going to take JJ's spot. He's already been kind of ordained.
I thought they were going to try and get the kid out of Alabama. or at least
yeah, they
Talia
yeah.
before he found
So
out he's
yeah,
not
I
playing.
know we'll see, but I know that the Michigan people need to get on their game with not just selling the brand and the Block M and the prestige. You have to be able to go into these kids' living rooms and explain to them how we have this. They should be proud of it. They've got one of the greatest alumni bases ever. They've got billions of dollars in booster money and alumni around the world that want to give money to Michigan and help Michigan. Like they should use that as a selling point for these kids to get them NILs.
Yeah, it is amazing how they push that aside. It's like they're too prestigious to do that.
Just go get Steve Ross. Just go get Steve Ross, who
Yeah.
loves Michigan, one of the richest guys in the fucking world, owns the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
Like, just get him to start giving money on a regular. Like, hey,
That's
set
it.
up the Steve Ross NIL, division of
Well, he
Michigan
needs
Athletic
another
Department.
building. He certainly needs another building in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
Real quick, last question before we wrap up. Thoughts on Michigan holding spring practice in Tehran this season? Scott, your thoughts?
Like I said, it should be interesting to see where how this program responds, reacts, deals with what is or isn't gonna come down in terms of sanctions. I don't envy Shamar. I don't envy Coach Moore. The expectations now are higher than they've ever been, and he's going to be expected to be winning Big Ten championships and going to the playoff
within a couple years.
I don't know how equipped they are to do that right now. I agree he'll have a year or two honeymoon, but if he ain't back there in year 3 or 4, I don't see him. The rope they gave Jim Harbaugh will not be the same rope they give Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore will get 2 years as opposed to Jim's 5.
And
I mean, 2 years. I'm saying 2 years after the honeymoon.
Yeah. But on that note, Scott, we've taken you up for way too long. Thank you for staying with us, folks. Great show. Great way to celebrate episode number 300. Go check out Scott OG Podcast, available on YouTube, available wherever you get you podcasts, gangsterreport.com. Scott's doing the Lord's work there. I mean, how many different movies, shows, documentaries, Netflix extraordinaire. Scott, anything coming up on the pipeline you wanted to plug before we head out?
BMF season 3 is going to premiere on March the 1st. And then season 2 of the docuseries, we're hoping for a green light soon, and we hope to go into production in the spring for season 2 of the docuseries. So, I'm excited about that. My couple documentaries that I did in 2023 are available at Fox Nation, which is the Fox News Channel streaming service. One is about the true story behind Goodfellas, and the other one is the true story behind Casino. One's called Skim City, and the other one is, I think, the Lufthansa heist. And then I wish I could share more details with this other thing, but I got some kind of like mob biker stuff, kind of the story of how the mob and the bikers have coexisted. They've been enemies, allies, rivals over the last 40, 50 years. And hopefully I'm going to be able to show everybody kind of a cool, high production, multi-part docuseries that's about that on a kind of a premium, either streamer or network. I'll have more details in the next couple months.
Yeah, I will be watching. That sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
Scott, thank you again. Roberto, I will see you later this week as we preview the Super Bowl. Who cares? Sports are dead. Caring about the NFL sucks anyway.
It sucks.
Nobody cares.
Yep.
So we'll talk about
it's
that.
all a conspiracy just to get
Thank you.
the Swifties to endorse
That's
Biden.
right.
Yeah, it's screw over the Lions is what happened.
Well, the Lions screwed themselves.
Well, yeah, that's true too. And on that bombshell, for Roberto, for Scott, until next time, we'll see you after a while.